My name is Nick Hughes. I'm the founder and CEO of Founders Live, and I want to welcome you to the next and the latest Founders Live conversations. Today, we're talking about innovating in the age of AI, key insights for founders. And we have a special guest today that's going to really provide quite a bit of background, thoughts, really just perspective from his direction as he's a part of an incredible company called Altar, which we're going to hear a lot about. But Vasco Magellan, Vasco, welcome to Founders Live Conversations and the talk today.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. Thank you all for being here. Let's make this interesting. It's interesting times and a super interesting topic, and really happy to discuss it and to share my I wouldn't say my knowledge, but my interests, because the knowledge it's available for everyone. It's our humankind's knowledge, and so it's just about the interest and curiosity that we are perceiving in this subject that we'll discuss today.
Very good. Well, thank you. It's awesome to be here, and we've partnered with Altair, and we're excited to have you as a part of our ecosystem and one of our resource providers as well. Would love to actually, before we get into the topic of today, would love to hear more about, if you could just share a bit about Altair and what you're all about. And we're going to drop some information here in the chat as well. But we would love to hear more about what you do, and then we'll get into the topic of today.
Yeah, so Altar, we are a Portuguese company. We are a product and software house. So we like to see ourselves as a extension team of co-founders. So we started back in 2015. We saw this need that a lot of founders would jump into development, into like really good ideas. Maybe they have the development skills, maybe they set up a team, but they'll jump into like something very like heavy in terms of heavy lifting, like starting an app, developing something with very like a lack of a very accurate plan. So Altar started as this product house that wants to structure the thoughts that goes behind building an MVP, starting a business. So this, like, it started with this product first narrative, in which we help people structure their thoughts, make a very accurate plan, and then tackle the development, which we also do, and we excel at it. So we like to see as a very holistic team of people. We are all like entrepreneurs, like in terms of like past lives, background, and so on. So we are very creative-minded people, and that we help, and we just don't diligently deliver software skills. We deliver ideas and counterpoints to your ideas. So it has been quite a ride. Like we have more than 80, I think 87 projects now delivered. Some of them like leverage a lot of capital in the past. So we work with a lot of people in the US mostly. And it's a super fun experience, because we deal with new ideas every now, like every day, new companies, new like whales, people with very interesting ambitions. And of course, like in the last year, like about 80 to 90% of the projects that comes to us, like everything has AI involved. Hence the relevance of this talk today.
Yeah, well, definitely. And that was really going to be my next question is, kind of leading into that, everyone, we're going to swim around this major topic of AI. And the thing is, look, AI is almost so generic of a topic, right? There's so many different kind of, more granular aspects of artificial intelligence. But, from your end, it's kind of like, we have some talking points to really go off of, but, what are the key trends that you are seeing right now? You mentioned pretty much almost all of the ideas that are coming to you now have some sort of AI, and I'm sure like these people are, they're like, and let's have some AI in there, which is probably the wrong way to go about that. But what key trends are you seeing right now that are very exciting?
So I would see AI. It's became like a buzzword, like crypto, like blockchain became like in the past 2 years. So everyone wants to have AI. Everyone has to. Someone said like seems like world is in generative AI kick, but there are so many more aspects. Yeah, absolutely. Like so, people. I think AI has been overused. So first of all, I think it's important to clarify what is AI. And AI has been here since the 50s. Something like has been developed in many ways: robotics, computer vision, so on. And now, of course, we talk more about AI because everyone saw the wonders that ChatGPT can do, and of course, everyone wants to integrate and stay relevant in an age that everything changes so drastically. So, in terms of AI, first of all, it's important to clarify this relevance of AI. What is AI? AI, it's something that mimics some behaviors that we consider normal, typical of living beings, especially humans. And ChatGPT, it's the ultimate demonstration of the power of AI because it really suppresses the Turing test, which is this test that we can be deceived if we're talking with a machine or with a human. And lately, so this in terms of what does this impact in terms of the whole landscape of entrepreneurship, it's a huge shift from what we conceive as a computer. And what I've been like the interesting thing of talking with all these people with ideas is that everyone, I see two things. Like everyone thinks that they are the only ones that have this new fire that was given to us, and they want to benefit as maximum from it, or everyone is afraid of becoming irrelevant, so they want to continue their relevance. So the trend here is it's a massive shift of how we perceive the internet. I don't know if you are familiar with the concepts of Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. Normally, people are familiar with the concept of Web 3, which is the latest, the blockchain, so the shareable, like the decentralized version of the web. But there was a massive shift between Web 1 and Web 2. Web 1, we had centralized sources of content. Web 2, we had Facebook, we have YouTube, so regular users could upload content and was a way like a peer-to-peer, basically a way more content, more amateur content rolling on the internet. So you get a landscape of very diversified content. And now we have like, I cannot call it Web 4 because it wasn't coined, but let's say Web 2.5, it's between Web 2 and Web 3, which is generative web, where the web itself mutates. So the web talks by itself. And it's super interesting to see how this will change the whole landscape of how we build tools, how we talk with computers, and so on. So right now, like the biggest trend in AI, of course, it's like chatbots and so on, like for the entry-level people. And we'll come to more specific things in terms of how developers and entrepreneurs should prepare themselves. But I would say that as I see AI at the moment, it's getting normalized in people's conversations. So before was a couple of people that knew this, and people would keep it for themselves, thinking like, how can I benefit? I can do so much work with this, just by and without telling anyone. And suddenly it's becoming like everyone is using, everyone knows that it exists, and it's super normalized. Something that 2 years ago was like perceived as magic. So I think the biggest shift, like into 2024, is this normalization and the entrance in scale of AI in the workspace. So every company now, at least has a talk about AI. At least it's something that stopped being some innovative word and it became like the rule of the day.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Why does this matter for founders? I saw like last year, like all these conversations of AI, a lot of people wanted to implement these in their tools. So basically tools that would value themselves as being AI driven, and basically they would have some sort of like a chatbot included that would generate something like images, like something that would basically mimic what we see now in ChatGPT or any other like major Gemini, Google, whatever. Now we see it shift because that doesn't hold as a value proposition. So we see something very different of people no longer using the term AI as a value proposition, but just using the value of AI to enhance what they already do. So I think that's an interesting aspect of this normalization that you see when there's a big tech shift. It takes a while, and ChatGPT was pretty fast, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah, it's
flipped.
really interesting. And I think, just one of the angles here I think we should cover is so when you think about startups, you think about early stage teams, typically we're resource constraint. A lot of times that's capital, but also human capital, right? We have small teams and we don't have a lot of people to employ. And the unique thing is that there's like a direction here that a lot of these automated systems and with AI being able to now accomplish quite a bit, if not a lot more. So you have small teams now. They might be, two or three founders with all the tools and the things out there now. They're able to build and accomplish things that teams that 10 or 20 or 50 were accomplishing maybe even 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's one thing to think about is, when you look at a lot of this, there's a lot of developer tools, and you might be able to speak on some of them that actually either speed up coding, actually build, do most of that coding. And it's obviously not going to do everything, but it's
Yeah.
it's actually doing things that humans were on a team were doing before.
Something I find very interesting is the shift. So the transversal knowledge. So, for instance, in terms of my background, I studied physics, and so my background is super engineering, but I always consider myself a very creative person. I also studied architecture like for a couple of months, and then I gave up, and then I entered into entrepreneurship, building products, and so on, because I like cross projects. Like I'm very eclectic in my interests, so I have a hard time like fixating in one project. And for people like me, AI enhances parts of my knowledge that maybe, I don't know, I'm creative, but maybe I'm not diligent enough in specific fields, or I don't have like certain knowledge that a computer scientist had, and AI can boost that little gap that I was missing, so can enhance my creativity that it couldn't be enabled for lack of knowledge in certain fields. And suddenly I can become, let's say, like an architect part-time, because I can just like enable so much with it. And that's very interesting because it shifts a lot human talent, and people are worried with replacement. So nowadays founders can, like with just a team of three, can just build what previously a team of 20. But that's an advantage, but in a way everyone has that advantage. So in terms of competitive landscape, if everyone has it, no one has it. But I think the key factor is understanding the shift. Like we are in a very, very interesting tipping point of shift of talent. So a lot of people that before they would be labeled as, I don't know, I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, suddenly 90% of their tasks will be replaced by AI. And it's that little Pareto 20%
Yeah.
that really will make a difference in enhancing the talent in different, applying in different fields. So it's super interesting for us all here to really think deeply, like what are my key, not just talents, but my key interests that I could explore with such tools. Like take it for learning, take it for productivity, and so on.
Yeah, yeah. And let's actually really hit the when you look at the trends that are happening right now, of course we have the generative AI. Let's talk about a few of these major things that you're seeing, and we'll start with generative AI. And really that's most people, or at least a lot of familiarity around ChatGPT. OpenAI has built that, and there's a number of other companies that are building in this. They're using large language models that power really in the end, these tools that, I mean, they're impressive. It's not even the right word to say. At some point, it's like, whoa, like, if you go down the rabbit hole of some of these tools, but they're generative. And then on, Stability AI, and you look at like imaging, you look at the images or the videos now. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what we're seeing in that direction and, what is kind of still exciting, or there's some things that it's like, oh, that was so late, like that was last month, So maybe share some ideas around the generative AI
Yeah, so I'll
initiative.
just give a brief context of what has happened in the past like 3-4 years. So basically, as I said, with the advent of Facebook, YouTube, like basically Web 2 tools where users would display content on the webs very easily without any knowledge, previous knowledge of computing or whatever, they could just post content. The internet grew exponentially in terms of the amount of content. And back in 2017, there was this famous paper at Google called Attention is All You Need, where they basically created this algorithm, this it's called a transformer model that allows for a computer to interpret language in a very complex way. It's not just a simple prediction. It's prediction with like hyper categorization of parameters. So the computer can actually interpret a word by its meaning and not just by its like probability over the amount of text that it has. And that just pumped generative AI in a way that in terms of large language models, so creation of text, which is what we are more familiar. And so this new world where everything gets created in terms of trends that I see. So basically, we have these hyper general models that can generate everything like knowledge that we ask, but they are super generalistic. And what people now are doing, and a lot of founders are building products around this, which is doing context specific knowledge. So let's say ChatGPT, it's very broad. It's very like I can ask everything, but if I can ask something about my grandmother, he doesn't know. So how can I put my grandmother inside ChatGPT so that I can not ChatGPT, but a large language model that I can interact with. So it's this context driven platforms that we're seeing raising. So there's many techniques to do that, but basically the big challenge of the landscape of AI, it's all about context. How do I give context? How do I lead my users to get and to provide the best context to interact with these like hyper intelligent models? So I would say that 99% of the projects that we see there, taking aside the big sharks such as OpenAI, Stability AI, Google, and so on, 99% are context-driven products, which is like the business of the future. That's one trend in terms of products that one can build around AI. Another one, and it's what I'm really invested and thinking thoroughly. It's the revolution of UX. It's I don't know if everyone remembers when the iPhone appeared, 2008. The big revolution of the iPhone is well, it's there's that interesting discussion with between Steve Ballmer by Microsoft that he said it's a very expensive phone and doesn't even have buttons, and it was like the biggest slap in the face, the most expensive slap in the face in history.
Yeah.
But that's a big revolution because basically you have a product, a UX device that transforms iteratively as you interact with it. So there's no buttons. The screen itself changes and it's a button, then it's just screen. And that's for us, that's very obvious now. But back in the day, and that's the genius of Steve Jobs, it's something really, really, really transformative. And what we're seeing with generative AI will transform the way we interact with computers. So currently, the biggest limitation that we have in interacting with a product, and hence like a good design, it's essential for a product, it's our fingers. We are bound for 10 fingers to interact, and so things have to be intuitive, swipes, slides, whatever. And with generative AI, so the interaction with the computer, it's even more versatile than just a touch screen in terms of like meaning, context, and so on. So I think big products will come out, and this is very interesting for even non-technical people to think about this. The concept of computer will change drastically. So I bet everyone at home has a screen and a keyboard, or maybe you're on your phone. In the future, in the very, very near future, things will change a lot. It's more probable. Go.
That is amazing. And I just want to step in to add, and I think that was really great, the way that, just kind of illustrating, when you look at, this right here, right? And before, as or yeah, there were mobile devices, but the iPhone really, when it came and it hit the market, it tremendously changed the way that we interacted with these mobile devices and then what was built within, right?
Yep.
So now we're used to taking our phone, hitting a button, and the car shows up. I mean, that was not anything that we would imagine before the iPhone was here. And so you laid it out perfectly. And am really, what you're illustrating is, now this is kind of archaic. Like we've got a finger and we're like,
Yeah,
oh, boom,
yeah,
hit this. The way that we're gonna communicate with these things and the data. So also, I think also shifting our mind to it's not just, yeah, there's data in here as well, obviously. And I use my thumbs to communicate or move it. We're going to be talking to it. We're going to be other ways to interact with the data that then results happen, or you're talking to the model and the model's talking back to you.
yeah, yeah. It's
That is
it's
incredible.
it's super different, and I think we'll simplify a lot. So, for instance, like in terms of screens and everything will be super custom, or it's more probable that you have your own assistant that will outline the information the way you like, with the display you like. So it will be way harder for companies to enforce some sort of like design or to users, because they will be talking with their assistants. In a way, like of course there's still be like visuals and so on. Like people like visuals and people like to be led on. No one wants to think too much when they're dealing with a product. It's like one of the pillars of design. But surely, like this is the new iPhone screen that's happening in terms of the way the products. There's a question here. It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will read it for people listening as well. How would a new startup position themselves to have a business model that benefits from the maturation of these models versus a company that's business model is wiped out based on the advancement of these models? So maybe another way to say it is, what is when you are you're talking with a lot of different early stage companies and you're seeing a lot of these models come, where do you see a much more beneficial positioning to take advantage of these changes versus actually being in the way and just getting wiped out because of these new enhancements?
It's very hard though. So I that's the main concern of every founder that comes to us and speaks, is like, I remember just one guy wanted to build like this assistant to do deals, like peace deals in a country, and like a super complex peace dealing, like in war zones. And and we're building this assistant, and throughout the weekend OpenAI launched GPT's assistants that suddenly kind of did more or less the same thing. So in the space of 1 week, like the whole landscape changed. We had to change a lot of parameters, and then we came to this conclusion that I think the biggest asset nowadays for people, like the competitive advantage, is even more unbalanced. Even when we consider like, oh, there's Google, it will take over everything and so on. Now it's not just Google, it's OpenAI, it's Mistral, is Anthropic, it's whatever, and they are even harder to replicate because they have super hard and in terms of computing power, very hard to compete. What I think like smaller fish like us can do is to work locally with a global mindset. So think of local problems that only you have like direct access, because the key value in terms of building nice products is to have like the key interaction with the user. And this local action, it's something that these big corporates, these big models cannot achieve. So of course, more and more they will achieve, but I think the competitive advantage that we have is like the local knowledge. And how do you do this? It's all in the data acquisition method. So that's the key factor and the key differentiator in terms of success in the future is not just owning the data, but owning the data acquisition methods. That's something that small, like amateur, like people starting from scratch, founders can start. Like how, because the whole landscape of generative AI is boosted by computing power, of course, but also by data. So these models only learn and only know as much as the data they get. And previously we had like superficial data, like that we could do a lot already with it. Like you have, I don't know, like Facebook likes, page views, visits, whatever, and you can already extrapolate a lot of value from it. Now the data that we were talking about, it's basically everything. It's dialogues, it's spatial recognition, is volumes, is weight, is like basically any type of data that you can think of can be leveraged and reshaped into to provide value. So I think we should focus when designing something, it's a local problem that you have access to. Of course, you can, by local, I don't mean that has to be in your like small town. It can be whatever part of the world, but something that only you have access to it, and it's not just via the web. And sort of try to think how can you convert that data into like a sustainable and valuable business. In terms of the big models, they'll eventually get there, but it will be much harder. So that's the kind of the arrival time as a competitive advantage.
Yeah. And, so Matt, just really great question. And I think we should continue to actually circle around this a little bit. And it really kind of leads to a, maybe higher level topic that we want to move into is, how should startups be thinking about and focusing, in this landscape and thinking about AI and involving it in their projects. But the landscape is changing so fast. So, I think what Matt is illustrating is, kind of like in terms of what business model or, just being aware of the changing landscape and how to make sure you're on the correct side of things. And, my suggestion, Matt, is really just you mentioned business model. Okay. So I would suggest actually getting much more in depth on where that value is created, because AI, or, again, we're using some generic terms here, but AI can augment a lot of your systems, but it might not, most likely. I don't think it's going to tremendously change business models quickly. I think over time, business models shift because the world changes, but we still have similar oriented business models that were around 100 years ago. It's just technology has kind of shifted the way the dynamics happen in the market. So my suggestion is, in terms of a business model, really understand where the value is created, how is that created, who is the buyer or the customer, who is providing that service or product, and AI can actually augment or speed up or enhance that, but there's still going to be a buyer and seller in a relationship. So that would be my quick, just obviously do a little more work on that.
Yeah, so there's this shift, like as I said, like before, people were using AI as the value proposition, and I think that's wrong, or it's irrelevant in 2024. People should focus on their value proposition per se, and AI should just enhance that, because in the end, it's a network effect that counts. You need to have a network of users, you have a network of value, and you are connecting value to users. And as long as you can provide that, that's the key. And of course, you have to enhance whatever you do to stay relevant in an age where technology is at the AI level. So it's delivery, taxi services were done with horses. The invention of the automobile didn't change their business model, just changed from horses to cars, and the horse-driven services, it just became irrelevant. So
right, it's like, look, I'm a rider, I'm a consumer, and 100 years ago, I waited around, and someone, with the horse and carriage came up. I did pay them for them to take me to the next place. We still have that today. It's just faster and it's more amazing. Hey, let's actually, Eli looks like has this is a really interesting question. I think is a good direction to go. Is have you seen AI leveraged to assist in getting product market fit or acquiring customer feedback? Speak to maybe some projects or directions you are seeing that this is perfect for, hey, you're an early startup, bootstrapped, we're a small team. How do we use these new tools to actually get meaningful feedback and get to market faster?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's, yeah, you can. There's a underlying philosophical question behind this question that I'll get to it. But absolutely, you can. So AI right now, generative AI, it's multimodal. So you can, not you can throw text at it, but you can also throw images. You can throw web pages. You can, and it can describe you. And since it's a model built on top of a lot of accumulated knowledge, it can give you general visions of what has been trained on. But again, it will always be past information. And there's some reasoning, but the problem of these models in terms of this type of like super product market fit is that they're not very visionary. At least what we are like ChatGPT and so on, like they're super a little bit stuck in the past. So they'll never tell you this is going to be the next trend. They can reason on that, but they can just give you like the typical, and it's something that can speed up the process, like typical like debugging stuff, like visual assets, like can debug like the visual consistency of your design and so on. So basically they can act as your assistants in many ways, like, and especially now with GPT, the Omni, the latest version of OpenAI, it's, I don't know, like things are changing so fast, but the principle is the same. It's just a super hyper intelligent assistant that it's here to help you on specific tasks. But my underlying question is, if when you ask like for customer feedback on a product, you're assuming that so you're interviewing your persona type, and that data will feed your hypothesis, and then you take a decision on it. If you feed that to AI, or if AI becomes your norm or your tester, you're not attending something which is like a bit of the core of this conversation, which is how do you distinguish a computer from a human? And there's many ways to do that. It's very hard, and it's becoming more and more hard. But in the future, if AI is your tester, you're not attending for the core features that's of your end consumer, which will be people like us. So this distinction of, and it's something very interesting that will come and it start appearing, which is this human-made or human-driven concept that before was quite evident as a society what human mean. Nowadays, this is like a very weird concept, and it seems that it's a super far-fetched philosophical conversation, but it's more and more relevant, and you see more and more labels on LinkedIn, like not officially, but in their algorithm, like human mind driven text and so on, that will be more relevant in the way that we interact and that we do this type of assessment. So yes, it can help you debugging. It cannot give you the accurate will or direction that your consumer will go to.
Yeah, that a very very great insight. Agreed. And when you think about yeah, look, product market fit, most likely there's a human using something that you've created, right? There's people using it. And I say that in a funny way because, hey, maybe it's not, right? So it has to be specific to what you're doing and building. But most of us here are creating things that in the end, there's a human using it or enjoying value from it. That's your market. And so you want to make sure that you are interacting with, in the end, like Vasco's saying, humans, acquiring the feedback. Hey, there might be tools and systems that maybe speed that up in certain ways. That's great. But I think the note here that I took that I hope you all heard too is, hey, be very aware now of how you are going about getting that essentially that market feedback to use to continue forward in building and in taking your product and company forward. Because, you know, if you use the wrong input, you're gonna have probably the wrong output.
Yeah,
So
and you might think that you're speeding up the process, but you're having a machine faking that he's some person that's not your customer. Basically, will mimic a human from 2022 that used
yeah.
to click these buttons, that used to have these behaviors, which is not the human of 2024 or 2025.
Mm.
It's something that, and I'm sorry to always bringing this to these philosophical terms, but my definition of AI is like a system that does a task that was typically associated with a human. As we go further on this line of AI doing these like crazy tasks that we thought that no one could ever replace, what we consider typically done by a human, that concept will change drastically. You know, like writing a text in 10 years, that's not like a human driven activity. But I'm sure that there will be some human driven activities that won't be coded into AI. So I think we should be looking for these opportunities, like these insights, and as we see, like, okay, this is changing a lot now. Everyone, like, now machines can write text, but what exactly they cannot do? People talk about empathy. Let's see how it holds. Maybe I can grasp some part of my business can be valued over that concept. And we have to be a little bit philosophical, because it's time of great changes. So this is not like minor, I don't know, like a processing power or like a hyper large battery. This is like a very, very drastic change in the way that will relate with, not just with machines, but with each other. So it's yeah, be careful with being too fast, with using machines for being too fast. Don't skip the human factor, because that's the key to everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to get to the next question in a second in terms of kind of where I want to go, but I want to point out something that you just said that we talk a lot on these conversations around, we go into some unique areas and the way to think as a founder and an entrepreneur, the way to approach, leadership or, building things in your team. And I just kind of want to mention that we are now in a area, we're talking about AI today and like speeding things up, and hey, this is going to make our go to market so much faster. Or, Eli just mentioning just kind of maybe just augmenting some things a little bit more. But point is, speed is not the main thing. Okay. And, I've learned this through building Founders Live. Look, we're 10 years old. All right. And there's something to be told about, you build a company and you're around for 10 years and you have a brand that reaches all around the world. That is significant. And it takes time to build great things. And just know that sometimes it's actually not the right decision to try to go as fast as possible, because that's when kind of fatal mistakes can happen. And so let's now be aware that we're in an era, we're in a time that there are these things and these tools that, yeah, let's go a lot faster here. Let's use this. Be aware that that might not be the best decision for your company. Going an appropriate speed to get this feedback that we do know that it's from the right target market, and you're taking some time to make the right decisions for your vision and your future. That actually takes actual time. And so I think that it's important to say that in today's world where we just think, oh, we got to go faster, faster, faster. Not always the case.
No, it's very true. And you can use AI to help you on that process. You can use AI to help you write and approach email for an end user to actually interact with whatever product you're building, but not like fully replacing just for the sake of forging your data, basically.
Yeah. So, now that we're kind of there, I do want to ask, let's kind of go with maybe one thing that directionally that's really exciting you in the team there at Altair. Like, hey, we're pumped about this direction and things that are happening in this direction for AI. And then what worries you, right? Like, let's actually talk, just kind of hit that. But, first and foremost, what are you, what is the things that, or the maybe sum up like, hey, we're just excited that this is happening.
Yeah, so just very brief note on personal level, what really excites me on AI is the learning capabilities. So I've been learning so much in a very custom way. So I have a very particular, and everyone has their own particular way of presenting information, and I can just cater everything to me. Like maybe, I don't know, I imagine like you like football, like explain me this with a metaphor on football. And it really makes a difference. And it's super exciting. Like the amount of channels that I've opened in my life over the past 2 years, just with this. So that's just like my personal note. In terms of Altar, everyone, and I think it's not just us, but now there's like the big thing, as I mentioned before, the big services that we're providing in AI is more on the context level. So now the big thing is the agents that we, I don't know if you've been hearing about the agents. It's like the new trending word, which basically in a nutshell, an agent is like an AI system that has the capabilities to do function calling. So something that I'm talking with, let's say ChatGPT, and instead of just being confined to its knowledge, it can now talk and can trigger actions. And it's something super challenging because it has to trigger the right action. So it has to have very accurate boundaries, like never do that, never press the nuclear button, but you can press the API to get the weather or to whatever service that you want to provide the user in real time. So it's super interesting to build these kind of things, like connect in the flows of, let's say, at Altar, we've been working a lot with like these action flows. So you start with, I don't know, regular action, and you give power to these agents to decide on the appropriate action to take. So it's like basically training an employee, but it's a computer program. It's super interesting. So that's very exciting to work with, and you guys as founders to think of like the space that you like to work in with, and how can you sort of like processualize whatever value proposition you're delivering, and think that you can put intelligence, I'm not saying beings, but intelligent. Has to be very careful with the words nowadays, but intelligent the programs that can take decisions for you, and very complex decisions. So it's very interesting because we work with a lot of like diagrams of like graphs of knowledge, graphs of actions, and seeing it all happening. It looks like magic, and it's super exciting.
I thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, these agents, it's really interesting direction there. I'll just kind of leave it at that based on time. What is challenging or worrisome to you? And hey, maybe feel free to take it philosophical again, but
Yeah.
what is that maybe you're like, that's a bit challenging.
So when the whole thing's like started, like back in 2021, 22, like when the generative AI like started hitting hard, I was really like concerned with, I don't know, like replacement, everything like super hardcore AI. And then I understood that it's just like my perception. If someone back in, I don't know, the 17th century would look at the car, would see it as a dragon, like with fire flames and like super scary, because
Yeah.
it doesn't acknowledge like all the mechanisms behind it. Like there's an engine, there's gas, like there's pump, there's a control system, but it's limited to do that. But in its perspective, it's something like super complex that can do everything and eventually kill you. I'm past that stage. Like I'm super comfortable with AI. It's just something that we'll have to live. And but what truly concerns me is the centralization of this whole thing. So I think it's getting too centralized in like a monopoly of a couple of agents, like companies in this case, OpenAI, Google, and so on. And we've seen, and I think we have very short memory as a society. We've seen what happened with Cambridge Analytica back in 2016 with elections. and successive elections, like the power, and these were just based on some behavior on Facebook, clicks, like super simple data. The
Yeah.
amount of power that these mechanisms have to interpret our data now in every sense, image, text, audio, and so on, it's scary. And I'm not scared of the AI itself. I'm scared of the owners of the AI. So this is something, it's like, and with every struggle, fear also comes business opportunities. I think in the next 5 years, maybe even less, next 2 years, we'll see and there's a lot of like the EU AI Act, the Bill of Rights, the AI Bill of Rights in the US and so on. A lot of legislation happen. And we'll see more and more companies, especially like more like hard businesses like banks and so on, going into services of local large language models or local agents like that you can, I don't know, like extract, like they're isolated from the network and so on. So it's something, these type of concerns over the implications of centralized AI power. I think it's a very interesting business opportunity to provide service off grids. We think that everyone is getting off grid, like, I'm getting out of the city and set up like a farm and so on. I think machines will do that first, like will do before us in terms of getting off the grid of intelligence.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah, so interesting. So interesting. That's good. Thank you for sharing that. I will add a little bit of, I think what concerns me is just what we perceive as truth, or like this picture I'm looking at, that's real, or this video that I'm seeing now, like that, is that real or not? And so now that when we go back to generative AI, I mean, there is literally these videos that are being created that are fully automated and not real, that look real. And the moment that, like, if we hit a threshold where we're like, more of the things that we see literally every day we think are fake,
Yeah.
we're get to a point where what is real, and how are we, like, I mean, the world literally runs on us but having faith in, that this is actually real. I mean, not to get again too philosophical, but
No, but one has to be philosophical in these times because it's
exactly.
I sometimes I think of like how addicted I am to this little fellow, and it just like it's a little screen and it's limited for my fingers.
Yeah.
Just imagine when these things are in my eyes or something. It's
Well, yeah,
my
look, I was talking to some people the other day. I think I was telling you about this. And that's what I said. I mean, hey everyone, again, 2006, 2007 was when this really hit the radar, and the first version of iPhone was 2007.
yeah.
Um, and again, like, the things that we take fully for granted every day, you and I and everyone on this call, was not normal 20 years ago. Okay. And we would see it in a movie and be like, no way, that's crazy, that's cool. And now you do it every day with the technology that's in front of you. So in 10 years, what we will be doing with AI agents, or these things, are going to be normal, and we're going to take it for granted. And that's exciting. It's also worrisome. And I think for me is, and this is just a message for everyone as we create things now. We're creators, we're founders. Be mindful of that, of like, how are we creating things that we can feel confident and proud that we're bringing it to the market and it's a net positive, versus maybe something else which is possibly not a net positive in certain directions. And I think with a lot of the images and content and videos, I mean, when we're at a point where we're like, who made that video? And I don't know if that's real or not. And it's like destruction, or it's even like taking someone's likeness. That's my concern. I'm definitely a positive looking person, but I have a concern about the future when all of this is so readily available to be made, with the fingertip.
And I think so. Just like to wrap up in terms of suggestion, like this back like to the question of like how can I do something relevant towards these models? So it's very hard to compete with these models, but you can compete with preventing harm from these models. So that type of like working on that space of, I wouldn't call the space of fear, but the space of anxiety, of like caution that people will want to be attended. I think there's a big market there. Like I don't know, like large language models off grid, things a little like protected for this, your information. So all these type of services that now we have, like VPNs and this type of services, like to protect our privacy, services to protect our reality, services like there will be the need for that, and I don't see a lot like being done in that front, like attending to the anxieties of the public. So there's like a lot of space for innovation there, and it won't come from the large language models. They won't tell you how to do it.
So incredible. Well, hey everyone, we have time for probably one more question if it's a quick one. Feel free to type it in there. You know, Vasco and I can sit here and talk for hours. So we can definitely get one more question in here. But we're coming to the end. Yeah, I think it just, summarize, it is a very exciting time. Thank you, Jamie. That's great. Appreciate it. Very exciting time. It is a time to strongly consider now the technologies and the things that we're all using, and especially the things we're building. And, when, what we heard here is, maybe being aware of, obviously, these are great tools. And, again, I would even say, look, we are going to see pretty massive, really cool companies and brands created with a very small team. Like, could be one person, but probably 3 to 5 people are going to create major companies around the world. And because they're using much more of these tools to have automation and things happen behind the scenes. So it's a net positive, in my opinion, for entrepreneurship. And I think these are great tools to get people in the hands so that we can all do the things that we want to do. So net positive, but we want to really be aware of what's going on and how we're bringing it to the market. You mentioned, maybe being the solutions to things, and that's cool. So yeah, do you know, let's see this, yeah, thank you all. This is great. Do you know the situation of AI talents, or is it still a big shortage? Or, Freya, I'm not sure exactly your question
Yeah, I
here, but
think it's like the shortage of I don't know, like AI engineers and like these fights
yeah.
between like if all these guys from OpenAI would quit, like Salesforce would hire them all, and I think there's still some shortage, but also like computer science degrees and so on, they like just shifted drastically into that space, like boot camps, everything is now targeting AI. And I think it's being solved, and also AI itself, it's kind of feeding itself. So
Yeah. Hey, real quick before we're done, is there any resources that you would suggest? Look, there's some like daily emails that I get that are, kind of pretty helpful, and they're just dropping a lot of new tools. So what do you follow in this direction that you would, just one or two things at the top of your mind that we could kind of share?
I don't follow like particular channels. I follow people. I think like and now I'm just saying like a mental a blank, but I would say like Andrew Ng is like the Einstein, the equivalent for physics. It's for AI. Andrew Ng is like the founder of Coursera. Follow him on LinkedIn or his channels. Like he has a lot of like educational videos about AI, and it's like the source of the Bible. So I think if you start from there, you can channel for everything else. And then of course, like be like aware of these like OpenAI and like the big charts that are doing the big game changes. I always like follow like what's going on in OpenAI constantly, because it's so I would say like start with Andrew Ng. I can write here. And then just follow like the major companies: Anthropic, OpenAI, Google, like Gemini, Mistral. Yeah. I would say that it's a very overwhelming time to to get to digest everything. So
It is. I will mention, let's see, I just, some things that if anyone wants to subscribe to things, there's like daily emails called the AI breakfast. It's actually, just every day they send a kind of an email that just has a bunch of stuff. And a lot of it, there's a number of those that are kind of the same thing and they're talking about the same things, but AI breakfast. There's an AI tools maybe is another one. If you search these, they're gonna pop up and all that. Yeah, Sequoia has a lot of good stuff. Sequoia VC firm. But yeah, this is great, everyone. Well, Vasco, I want to thank you so much for you're seeing in the comments there. This has been a really great conversation, been very helpful, and also philosophical in ways. So appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you.
thanks for the
Yeah.
invitation. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. We dropped information. If anyone wants to find more about Altair, you can click on that link and check it out. Reach out to the team if you have other questions, things about building products as well.
Feel free to reach out, book a slot, let's talk, tell us the idea. We always provide value. Like our principle is not just to close deals, it's to actually like always be like provide value and like hear ideas. We always grow when we have a conversation. So just feel free to take our time.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your day, your evening, your middle of the night, or whenever you're watching this as well. So thank you all, and look for the next conversation coming up soon.